Bombshell tonight in the Nolan Wells investigation. A mystery altercation emerges. And not with the guys that took him to the island on the boat. Does this change things? We cannot ignore it.
Nolan Wells left the mainland aboard the Triton. He did not come back. And somewhere in the 30 minutes after that boat pulled away from Horn Island, something happened that, as of tonight, nobody, not his family, not investigators, not the young men who were with him, can fully account for. I'm going to walk you through this the way the evidence has actually come out. Not the rumors. Not the noise. What's been reported, what's been disputed, and what's still sitting in a 30-minute gap that keeps growing more complicated every time someone new comes forward. Here's where we start. Nolan Wells traveled to Horn Island with a group of young men aboard the Triton.
Sending in videos, they should be using those videos to conduct further investigation.
There is a group of people fighting at 5 p.m. Who are they? Where was he? He wasn't floating in the water. He wasn't on the shore.
According to the timeline that circulated, that boat left the island at around 4:30 in the afternoon. Nolan was not on it.
Dave Mack, what do we know about some mystery altercation? We think after the Triton left Horn Island.
Nancy, this is a mystery altercation that is being described through social media as something that took place around 5 p.m. that day. This is 30 minutes after the Triton already left.
Now, if that were the whole story, it would already be troubling enough. But it isn't the whole story. Because roughly 30 minutes later, around 5 p.m., social media accounts began describing what's being called a mystery altercation. Reportedly, a group of people was seen arguing, possibly almost coming to blows on or near Horn Island. And separately, a boat, described as a Bertram, was allegedly seen leaving the area shortly afterward at a high rate of speed. Sit with that for a second.
And in this particular account, a Bertram boat was seen leaving shortly afterward at a high rate of speed. Now, this social media conversation claims that a person, one of the passengers, pretty certain Nolan Wells, was part of a group that was, quote, almost fighting around 5 p.m.
Whoa, wait.
A group fighting. A different boat, leaving fast. 30 minutes after the boat Nolan should have been on already left without him. If you're the kind of person who notices timelines that don't add up, you were already ahead of a lot of people watching this story unfold.
Hold on, Nellie. Did you say 5 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I jumped in, Dave Mack, is because 5 p.m., if Nolan was seen in an altercation at 5 p.m. on Horn Island, that's after the Triton, had already left. Let's see the boat, control room. We're talking about the boat leaving Horn Island. That boat. Had that boat already left when this altercation occurred? Dave Mack, that's a yes/no.
One of the pieces feeding this altercation theory is a direct message, allegedly sent to someone loosely connected to Nolan, reportedly reading something to the effect of the sender and their husband saw an argument, and the person they were writing to was told they'd spend the rest of your life in prison. Investigators, if this message is verified, would presumably want to know exactly who sent it, who received it, and who it was actually about. As of now, that hasn't been publicly settled. It's a claim, not a confirmed fact, and it needs to be treated that way. There's also audio that's been circulating. Audio some people believe captures voices in the background, apparently discussing trying to revive Nolan on a boat. Is it authentic? Reportedly, experts disagree. Some say it's real. Others say it may have been altered or manipulated. That kind of split, expert against expert, is exactly the kind of conflict that, if this case ever reaches a courtroom, becomes fertile ground for reasonable doubt. which means figuring out the truth of that recording matters more than almost anything else being discussed right now.
Yes.
Listen.
But the person said in the DM to another kid that is associated, not any of the kids that I interviewed or talked to, but that could be associated to some degree, that knew Nolan, that this person wrote a message saying, me and my husband saw you arguing with Nolan, and to the effect of you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. Nolan and another person that he may have been in an argument with, to me, are people that need to be investigated.
Now let's talk about the body, because this is where things get harder to explain away. A second, independent autopsy was reportedly conducted by a physician in Washington, D.C., retained by Nolan's family, after the state's own postmortem exam. That second exam allegedly found no bruising, no abrasions, no scraping on his hands or knuckles. Nothing that would typically be expected if Nolan had been in a physical fight. For anyone who's ever scraped a knuckle, that detail lands hard.
Before I even get to the merits of this, where I meant to go with this is everyone has been focusing on the young men that were on the boat that took him to Horn Island. Then we get this audio that we're trying to corroborate, where seemingly in the background you hear them talking about trying to revive Nolan Wells on the boat. Is that even real? We don't know yet. Or has it been doctored? Trying to find out. I've got experts telling me, renowned experts, by the way, it's real, and renowned experts saying it's not real. It's just like a trial, right? Where it's expert v. expert, who's telling the truth.
The examination reportedly found no bruising, abrasions, or other defensive type injuries on his hands or arms that would clearly indicate a physical fight. But there's a second finding that complicates that.
You got to look at it. You absolutely cannot ignore it. But one thing we already know from the second autopsy, they would have mentioned if he had any type of injury to his knuckles, if he had been in a fight. We didn't hear anything about abrasions or bruising or any type of injury that would be indicative.
The same examination allegedly noted a discrete area of deep tissue reddening at the back of Nolan's head, on the occipital region. That wasn't explained, according to the reporting. The level of decomposition Nolan's body had undergone by the time of examination may have made it difficult to determine exactly what caused that mark or when it occurred.
There's a big honkin' mark, subcutaneous, deep reddening tissue on his occipital. If I hit somebody in the back of the head, it'd be right there. We don't know what that is.
So ask yourself the question a lot of viewers have already started asking in the comments on other coverage of this case. How do you explain away one injury because of decomposition, while ruling out another injury because decomposition wasn't severe enough to hide it? That's not me accusing anyone of anything. That's a question the evidence itself seems to be raising. And if it's a question you already caught, you were paying closer attention than some of the people getting paid to analyze this. Then there's the water.
This focal area that they're talking about is, and I come back to this all the time, Nancy, is that his body, Nolan's body, is in such a state of decomposition to this point that he cannot make a definitive assessment on that area. And he did a multi-layered dissection, which, by the way, according to him, had not been done by the state medical examiner's office in Mississippi. He just went about it a different way. And as a matter of fact, if you like that one, I got another one.
A separate account has reportedly surfaced describing Nolan in the water with a young woman, allegedly appearing to struggle. Not confirmed drowning, but enough of a struggle that whoever witnessed it was, according to the account, visibly concerned. No one has publicly come forward to confirm this directly, and that's worth sitting with too. If two people were seen struggling in open water, wouldn't the people who saw it, or the young woman herself, want to be the first to explain what happened? Their silence, if this account is accurate, is almost as loud as the claim itself. We also know Nolan's cell phone was reportedly left on the boat, the same boat that left Horn Island without him.
Another report came to me of someone saying that they saw Nolan with a girl, and they believe that they saw Nolan and this girl struggling in the water, not necessarily drowning, but struggling. Like it was obvious enough that the person was concerned when they saw Nolan in the water, and he was with this girl.
His mother has said, publicly, that this doesn't sound like her son, that he was never far from that phone.
Oh, really? Because here's mine. So, you want to tell me Nolan Wells stayed behind and his cell phone went without him? I understand, don't everybody start screaming that he didn't want to get it wet. Of course he didn't want to get it wet. But there's ways around that. You can go put it on shore in your shoe, like everybody else does, to hide it from people, and then retrieve it when you go. But no, he let the boat leave with his phone. I agree with his mother on that. That is not Nolan Wells. He was never away from his phone.
So
it's a small detail, but small details are often the ones that don't fit. The ones that a family holds on to because they know the person better than a timeline does.
I can get the GPS, Morse. I can get the GPS, I can get the cell phone data, I can get the tracking data. I can tell exactly what time the boat left. But I can tell the truth of that. But I can't tell the truth right now about these conflicting reports. Was he on the boat? His phone was on the boat. That's the whole point. He's traveling with his phone, then he's on the boat. They're saying, no, he wasn't on the boat. Now this altercation has arisen, evidence of that emerging after the boat left.
And that family has paid a price for holding on. Nolan's mother, reportedly a home health care nurse, has said she's received death threats since her son's death became public.
You have to look at what really happened. If there was this mystery altercation, then yes, the police need to be investigating that. They need to be looking into that.
There was even, allegedly, an anonymous call suggesting she herself should be investigated. A mother who has already lost her son is now facing suspicion simply for asking what happened to him. If that doesn't tell you something about how ugly this case has become online, nothing will. Law enforcement, for its part, is reportedly continuing to run down every version of this timeline.
Okay, that said, the mom is getting death threats. Nolan Wells' mother dealing with not only her son is gone, he's dead. The investigation going on. Now she's getting threats. Isn't it true, Susan Hendricks joining us, investigative journalist, author of Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi, that someone actually called for an investigation into Nolan Wells' mother? Isn't she a home health care nurse?
She is, and it was an anonymous call saying that she needed to be investigated. To me, it was outright backlash connected to what happened to her son. It's despicable considering everything she's already going through. Anonymous calls to say that she's not up to par and needs to be investigated. It's sickening.
The boat departures, the altercation claims, the DMs, the water account, before anything moves toward formal charges. That's how it's supposed to work. Investigators typically hold information back, specifically so they can test what people are telling them against facts the public doesn't have yet. It's slow. It's frustrating to watch from the outside. But it's also, if the process is followed correctly, how the truth eventually holds up under real scrutiny, instead of falling apart the first time someone asks a hard question. Here's what I keep coming back to. A young man got on a boat to go to an island with people he apparently trusted. He never got back on that boat. In the 30 minutes after it left without him, multiple conflicting versions of what happened have surfaced. An altercation, a struggle in the water, a phone left behind, and another injury that decomposition supposedly ruled out. Somewhere in that 30 minutes is the truth, and right now, it belongs to Nolan Wells' mother more than to any of us. Because at the end of all this, what she's left with isn't a theory or a timeline. It's a phone that came home when her son didn't. So I'll ask you directly, if you were investigating this case, which detail would you chase first? The altercation, the injury nobody can explain, or the phone that never should have been left behind? Tell me in the comments. And if you think you already know where this timeline is headed, stay with me. Because in my next video, I'm going through an injury that decomposition can't fully explain. what investigators have said about who was actually on Horn Island after 4:30, and it changes how this whole 30 minutes looks.
Well, that's it, and that's what the police are doing. Is they're going to run these leads down, and they're going to try to verify what's credible and what's not before they go to a grand jury. They're going to exclude information that they think is completely uncredible. However, all of this information, if people are arrested at some point in the future and charged with a crime for Nolan Wells' death, then all of these conflicting stories, all of these different timelines, they become a conflict in the evidence. And as you know, Nancy, there's 3 ways a jury can find reasonable doubt if this ever gets there. And one of those ways is in a conflict in the evidence. So these are all favorable things that would benefit a defendant or defendants down the road. However, there's a reason why law enforcement does investigations. Professionals do it, not podcasters talking about it. Verified sources, all of that is nonsense. The police are going to keep information to themselves. They're going to also keep information